Hi, this is Bill Sutton.
And Jason Sutton.
Welcome to another episode of Sutton Impact Family Style. We'll start off with our sport business moment today. It's an interesting one. The Golden State Warriors have announced a PSL plan where the PSLs, the amount you pay for the PSL will be funded at the end of a 30-year period to get your money back for your PSL.
Wow.
So the agreement is, though, that you're going to buy season tickets for 30 years, which is a smart move, right?
Right.
But so essentially, the Golden State Warriors are getting a loan to help build the building. They're getting a 30-year season ticket commitment from the buyers. The buyers have what is in effect a savings bond, but it doesn't generate any interest, but they get their money back. And they can also buy low, sell high, because if the Warriors, who's to say what the Warriors become or what they are? Those things could continue to go up in value, and it could be a pretty good investment.
Right.
So it's a very, very unique thing. Nobody's ever offered to give the PSL money back. But if you're 58 years old and you're going to buy a PSL, I guess it's part of your estate.
I would assume so.
But I like it in that it was threefold, in that it guaranteed you season tickets for 30 years. So it's good for the fan, good for the organization. So stability. You're going to actually get the investment back, which is giving something back where nothing's ever been given back before, which I like. And then the fact that it could be an investment where, worst case, you get your money back. Best case, you get your money back plus whatever the value of it is accrued to if you want to sell it. So it is a PSL, but it's a refundable PSL. It's kind of cool. I like it. I'm going to see where it goes. I'm actually visiting the Warriors on Tuesday afternoon. So I'm going to see their sales center, and I'm going to ask a few more questions about this. But I was very, very intrigued by it.
Now, the Warriors being the Warriors, they're the most popular team in the world right now.
Absolutely.
They've got an incredible team that everybody wants. They're the must-see team in every city.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in a booming economic city. You've got a lot of young people with a lot of money.
A lot of disposable income. Because you can't buy a house.
You can't buy a house, but you can buy a PSL for your seat.
PSL.
So with that being said, I feel like with the Warriors, it sounds like it's an easy win.
I do. I think so. I think it's a home run.
Do you think other NBA teams could?
The one I want to see next is the Clippers, to see if they do it, building a new building in LA. But I also, while we're on this topic of LA, it's kind of a sport business moment, a fan moment, so it's both. But I am definitely getting LeBron to the Lakers vibes, real strong.
I think Kyrie is also echoing that a little bit. But back to with our PSL thing before we move on to that. Do you think a team Orlando's not looking for a new building right now?
No. A team looking for a building would be the Clippers would be the first one I could think of. When they put the new building in Seattle, that would be it. But but do you have the attractiveness of the investment? Do you have the attractiveness of the team? Do you have the demand for the team that you're going to want to tie up some money for 30 years?
Right.
That's what has to. It relates to the product, the perception, and the demand, as much as just the concept. So if you were the who don't want to crush today, unintentionally,
Charlotte.
Whoever, any other team that doesn't have these players decides to build a new arena, it may work to some degree, but it wouldn't work to the degree this is going to work.
Right. I feel like this seems like not only brilliant, but it seems like it'd be an easy sale. It's just a matter of taking phone calls in Golden State.
Because you're moving from Oakland to San Francisco. There's a lot of people in San Francisco have been waiting.
Been waiting.
And there's going to be people from Oakland who want to keep their tickets, or people that had them from before, wherever they might live. There's going to be a lot of demand for those.
And there's such a hot ticket right now. Owning a PSL in the new stadium is kind of a cool. It's another. It's another Rolex watch or gold call, whatever you want to call it.
You're probably got a frame certificate hanging on your wall, like if you own 5 shares of the Green Bay Packers.
And then obviously having season tickets to give out to clients if you're a there's just.
Yeah, and think about this: since there's never been an arena in downtown San Francisco, look at all the musical acts that are going to want to play that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a suite holder or you have the opportunity to buy the events besides the Warriors games, it's a no-brainer. It's going to be the hottest ticket I've seen probably in my lifetime.
Which would also make, what you said earlier, LeBron to the Lakers an even hotter ticket, potentially.
Yeah, because he's going to bring somebody with him. Right? It's not going to be just LeBron. It's going to be LeBron and...
LeVar.
But no, LeVar's already been there.
LeVar's already there,
Who's LeBron going to bring with him?
Well, you got Paul George.
Yeah.
You got Russell Westbrook, who still hasn't signed his.
You know there's going to be somebody that's going to go with LeBron to bring the Lakers back and win a championship. You know it. I mean, sit here, right here. You don't even need a crystal ball. That's what's going to happen.
And the Lakers now, I mean, they have Luke Walton as the coach. Ball does look like a legitimate pro. Brandon Ingram started to show signs.
Mm-hmm.
I know it was summer league, so, take this with whatever many grains of salt you need to take it with. But Kyle Kuzma, Larry Nance, they've got some nice pieces.
They do.
And they're just a few, and it sounds like Paul George will be their first star. Because no matter what he says about, well, if we do really well in Oklahoma City, I'd be crazy to leave here. I think he's due to the fact that nobody wanted to trade for him.
And he could sit back and wait and see.
Right.
Like if LeBron doesn't go to the Lakers, and the Lakers have a year, maybe he doesn't go. Maybe he stays in Oklahoma City for another year. Who knows? It's hard to say, but I do have this feeling that LeBron is going to go, and he's brought a championship to Miami, brought one to Cleveland, now he's going to return the Lakers to glory. That's a trifecta, right?
And if you listen to what's happening with Kyrie, pretty much since apparently before the draft, he's been asking to get out. And I think, there's different stories that pop out as to why he wants out. I think the not anti-Kyrie thing, but there's sort of that he wants to be his own man on his own team and not the little brother, which we have seen play out a number of times. That's what broke up Shaq and Kobe. Yeah.
Right.
But it sounds like, but he's also mentioned some of his destinations that he'd like to go to. And it's not like you're going to be the man in Minnesota.
No.
Because you've already got Karl Anthony Towns. You just traded for Jimmy Butler, and that's one of his trade destinations that he said he would like to go to.
Yeah, I saw that.
The Knicks are going to have Porzingis. Mm-hmm. And I know Kyrie would be hugely popular in New York.
He would.
As a tortured sort of Knicks fan, as much as I would like to see Kyrie Irving on the Knicks, I don't want to see the Knicks sacrifice more future picks, to go get Kyrie Irving, who does have a little bit of an injury history. He can't play defense. He's not really a two-way player. I know that Knicks would love him, and all of a sudden they'd be, a 7th, 8th seed every year, and that's great. But I don't want to see them leverage their future like they did with Carmelo. They basically destroyed that team.
No, it's going to be interesting.
But Kyrie apparently has wanted out since the finals.
You know what I think happened? I have a conspiracy theory here.
Okay.
I've been telling everybody the NBA is now a 10-month league. So now they're extended another month for me. Become an 11-month league.
You can't argue with that. That helps.
They're still in NFL training camps open up yesterday, or some today, some yesterday, some Friday. And we're talking about Kyrie Irving and LeBron.
It's true.
See?
And I do feel like, I read this interesting article on ESPN.com. I like to make sure, I don't know who wrote it, but I like to make sure I give credit to the actual article. But they said that what Kyrie's doing is an homage to the way LeBron has shown people the way you work in the NBA.
True.
That you're the player and you hold all the leverage.
And you decide where you want to be.
And you decide where you want to be and when you want to be there.
Negotiate with your friends to see if they want to go with you. Agree.
And again, if you're looking at Kyrie in this Cleveland mess that all of a sudden went from winning a championship, making it to the second championship, and now they just seem like an absolute disaster. They fired their GM.
They still don't have a GM.
They just hired, I think they actually just
promoted the guy from within.
They promoted the guy within.
Yeah. Which is a fallback.
Right. You have LeBron who won't commit. But the Cavs at the same time committed a lot of dollars to LeBron's fellow, management clients like Tristan Thompson and J.R. Smith, who were signed long-term to heavy deals.
Yeah.
I mean, LeBron walks away from that team. That team is an absolute mess. And he's given no indication he's doing anything other than probably going to L.A. next year. So if you're Kyrie Irving, you're probably like, why am I going to sit here on this ship?
And get abandoned.
No,
I agree.
Because it seems like if LeBron's got one foot out the door, the organization seems like it doesn't know where it's going. Why would you want to stay there? If you can force a trade, force your trade. Get out. I guess since we already mentioned a ball.
Yes, it's time for our ball minute.
Our ball minute. This is going to be a short ball minute because there's not a lot to say about it.
It's just that, it's always about him. I mean, they were winning by 9 points.
In a playoff game. In an AAU playoff game.
And he decides to pull his team off the court.
After he got a technical.
Yeah. It's about him. And he pulls those kids off the court. And they're not going to play. It was a semifinal game, right?
Semifinal game.
So they didn't get to play in the championship game. And they don't get that exposure. And they don't get the looks. And now you got to question, do I want these kids that have played for this guy anyhow.
Right.
It's crazy. I mean, I just don't get it.
And I believe there were UCLA and like 4 or 5 other major college scouts in attendance that night.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, they were mainly there for LaMelo.
Who's already signed.
Committed.
Well, not signed, committed.
For 2 years in the future. But it's the second time, the last time he pulled his team off, they were down by 50 to Compton, USA, or I forget what team it was.
Yeah, they're from Compton. They're down 50 points.
Right, and he pulled his team out.
Yeah.
But this time, again, you're winning. You get teed up.
And it's about you.
And you take your ball and you go home crying.
Yeah, it's about you.
It's
So, Jace, I think I still go back to the point that says, if I met Aladdin and the genie and I could have 3 wishes, one of them would be a 10-minute conversation with Mrs. LeVar Ball. Yeah, I have to see it. Is she part of this, or is she a silent, suffering saint? I got to know.
That's very true, because it doesn't. I do not remember hearing. We've
never seen a picture of her. Don't have any idea.
Right.
No idea. But I gotta wonder if she's like Lady Macbeth, or is she like this poor innocent that doesn't know what she can do. But I would love to meet her and have that conversation and say, WTF, come on, what's going on here?
Well, in
These
keeping
are
with
kids too.
In your conspiracy theory of an 11-month NBA season.
Yes.
Mr. Silver spoke about legalized gambling.
Yes.
Specifically, in sort of an interesting way, like not just legalized, but legalized during the course of a game in the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Which means you could prop bet throughout the games. You could be at the NBA game saying, I think Carmelo's going 0 for 10 in the second quarter.
Yep. I think the Blazers will score first in the third. Yeah, just like the NFL stuff. Yes, exactly.
Just like the NFL stuff. Which again, it seems inevitable. I mean, it technically happens. You can do it on your phone the entire game anyway.
Mm-hmm.
This would be a little bit more public.
I agree. It's inevitable. It's going to come. It's too much money. People want it. It's going to happen. I mean, it is.
Again, this isn't an original thought on my head. I wish I could explain where I heard it from, but I consume a lot of sports media throughout the week, but just whoever I'm meaning to give credit to, I'll give credit to. Where the NFL stadium, you were further back and you're far away.
Okay.
With the NBA, you're right on the court. And as we've seen, in Indiana and some other places, people have gotten on the court.
Yeah.
Now, we know how gambling works.
Mm-hmm.
Gambling is great when you're winning, terrible when you're losing.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already seen how obnoxious NBA fans could be just in general.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all of a sudden, you have $1,000 that says, Ball makes 2 3-pointers in the third quarter. Let's say Ball goes 1 for 5 in the third quarter. He's got the ball wide open for 3. He passes. Third quarter ends.
Mm-hmm.
Guy in the third row just lost $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
At best, he might, the best thing, he would just smile and be like, I lost. But that's not really human nature.
That's not human nature, no.
No.
Now he's going to gets a few choice epitaphs. And another thing is, in an NFL game, somebody gets hurt, card off the field, right? You can't see what's going on.
No.
NBA game, somebody gets hurt, you see it right in front of you.
Right in front.
And if they card him off, you see him card him off. Or you see the trainer working on him. So you got a little bit of an advantage there, too. I just think it's inevitable. It's going to happen. Thankfully, the players make so much money that I can't see it impacting performance. People throwing games like the Black Sox.
I don't see that happening.
But I can see, and
I've had 4 beers. I just bet my week's salary on the sheer thing that my buddy has said, I
mean, if you make it easier, obviously there's going to be more problems associated with gambling. People that don't have the resources are going to try and get healthy and try and do those things. And that's unfortunate. And the easier you make it, the easier you make it. So it's one of those things, but I just think it's inevitable.
Yeah, like I said, it's not going to
stop. You're
stop.
going to go to a ticket window, get your ticket, and you're going to go put your bets down. So when you go to a horse race, same thing.
Right.
It's going to be just like that.
I mean, that's on the one hand, I've always appreciated Adam Silver because it seems like he sees what's coming.
He does.
And he's not shy. He's not going to hide from it. Like, gambling has always been a part of sports.
And I would tell you this about Adam Silver, having worked for him. If he came out to say this, it's a product of what he's researched and thought and analyzed over the last 3 or 4 months.
Right.
He's not an off the cuff guy.
No.
That's not who he is.
And finally this week, I definitely want to talk about more Colin Kaepernick. I mean, we've talked about him sporadically.
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously still without a job.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Vick obviously said some
crazy things
this week.
Get a haircut.
He brought a haircut. I actually watched a segment with Bob Costas, and Bob Costas said a lot of sort of what I was thinking. And that's, no matter what you think about Kaepernick, he's clearly one of the 50 best quarterbacks on the planet. Probably not one of the top 20, but he's in that range of, 20 to 50.
And I would probably sit and say he's in the range of 30 to 50.
30 to 50, right.
I don't think he's a starter in the NFL. I think he could be a backup in the NFL.
I mean, technically last year, for a team with very little talent, he threw 16 touchdowns and 4 interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
On also, a very bad team.
And a team with no expectations and no pressure, and nobody expected anything.
Right.
So that has to be part of that equation.
That is part of that equation. And I do acknowledge the fact that, he is, inevitably, I feel like almost everybody technically falls under this category. It's one of those stupid things, but I'm going to say it anyway, and that's system quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Where he is very good at the read option, which, while it was really in vogue when he came into the league 6 years ago, much less so now.
Much less, yeah, I agree.
Because defenses have figured out how to stop it, and more importantly, it puts your quarterback at risk. In peril.
Yes.
And you look at guys like Cam Newton that are unable to throw the ball with a shoulder injury right now, or I think he might be back.
He's coming back. But
he's coming back.
He had surgery.
He takes a lot of hits. And one of the goals in the NFL is to keep your quarterback from being hit.
Mm-hmm.
But as Costa said, technically what Colin Kaepernick has done is no different than what a lot of people that we, now memorialize, like in Muhammad Ali. He took a stand against the war.
Mm-hmm.
He said, the reason I'm not going to go fight for you over there is you're not fighting for me over here.
Agreed.
People that look like me are getting beaten in the streets. Mm-hmm. They're being denied work. Mm-hmm. They're being given substandard houses. You want all this stuff from me.
Mm-hmm.
You won't help me here, but you want me to go help you there.
I think it's an unfair comparison because the body of work of Muhammad Ali is 10 times what Colin Kaepernick's accomplished.
Without a doubt. But it's in the same spirit.
I acknowledge the spirit part, but I don't acknowledge the fact that you're missing out on somebody that you should sign in a heartbeat. Give this guy a job.
Right.
I just don't think he's that good. I think he had a great season in a really interesting offense for a coach that's no longer there.
See, that's sort of been my point. Is that sort of like, and hopefully this comparison will work for some people. Sort of like with Michael Sam.
Yep.
I think you have two people that have important social issues.
Yep. Okay.
And they're just not great. They're just not great on the field. Like Michael Sam washed out in Canada.
Yep.
And I know people really wanted him to be this out, loud, proud, gay athlete in the NFL.
Did, yes.
And people wanted to make it this conspiracy that he wasn't good. He's not playing because
he's gay.
He's gay. But the fact is he wasn't on anybody's radar even before he came out. He had a great senior season where he put up a lot of sacks, opposite a first-round pick, in some games against low-level competition. He was a tweener, not really a linebacker, not quick enough to be the outside linebacker, not big enough to play in the end. And he still got drafted, still had his shot, went to Canada and washed out in Canada, where if you can't win in Canada, no offense to the Canadians, we have family up there, we love you, but our football is better than your football. You get hockey. But again, it's one of those, like it would have been great to see somebody out and proud representing the gay community in the NFL and sort of breaking that barrier. But he just wasn't the best player to do that just based on his physical skills. And I think you look at the world socially right now, and you look at, the number of African Americans that get, arrested and put away for life for petty crimes that, just doesn't happen to white people. You look at 3 people were shot before he started protesting. 2 more were shot during his protesting. And somebody else was shot. It's unarmed African American men in the street are being shot by the police. Like,
No, he has a valid point.
he has an incredibly valid point.
But my point was that the platform he picked overshadowed his message. That
Right.
nobody could hear his message because they were too hung up on him not standing for the national anthem.
Right, but what he did was technically what we did to start our country. He began with a silent protest.
Mm-hmm.
He raised, I mean, that's part of, I mean, that's as American as you can get.
Yeah.
And he didn't do it in an obnoxious way. He did it in a way where he was allowed, he knew that that was the way that he could get attention to his platform.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I would just like to see what would have happened if he had been, let's say, Matthew Stafford level. Like, clearly a top 10, top 15 NFL quarterback where you couldn't ignore him.
Okay.
Because the other issue I would bring up with Kaepernick about his quote-unquote talent or not being on the court. I mean, like I said, I don't think you can guarantee that he's not one of the top 60 quarterbacks in the world.
I think you have to say he is.
You have to say he is.
You have to say he is.
But what sort of disturbs me is that someone that made a peaceful demonstration about a real issue is villainized more than Greg Hardy, Pac-Man Jones, Ty Hill. And again, I don't mean to call these people out for the mistakes they've made in their life, but I mean, you have serial abusers. You have people that have committed actual crimes that seem to be, like Tyreek Hill was embraced. He beat his girlfriend.
Yeah. Threw her down a flight of stairs.
They were down a flight of stairs. Mm-hmm. Fantasy football players love that guy, and he's a hero. He's going to have no trouble finding work. A man with a legitimate social cause that tried to, and again, you may not like the way but he chose to do it in a peaceful, legal way. Who gives his time, gives his money to all these charities. He's become this almost the biggest villain in the NFL when we support these other players in the NFL.
But remember that there's, and I can't remember who said this, was somebody said if Charles Manson could hit 300, there would have been a spot for him in Major League Baseball.
Right.
So again, it's your talent doing what you can do overshadows whatever dubious things you do. And in his question, his talent isn't strong enough or isn't perceived to be strong enough to overshadow what some people perceive as to be a very positive thing, other people perceive to be a negative thing, because again, the message is lost. All they see is the protest.
Right.
And so that's where it is. I think if he would have won a Super Bowl, he'd have a job. I wouldn't argue with that. I mean,
right.
look at the Jets quarterback roster. Look at some of these teams
exactly.
that have nothing. So you can point and say he's better than those guys, and the answer is yes, he is. But do I want to take the risk of bringing him into my locker room? And the answer is no. And that's kind of the way I see it playing out.
And on a purely football perspective, I'll end with this statement, is that as a Steeler fan, I'd be more excited to have our recent draft pick, Josh Dobbs, potentially coming in to be the backup quarterback than him.
I agree.
Because again, I don't feel like if Roethlisberger goes down, I don't feel like Kaepernick is going to just pick up the mantle and all of a sudden our team wins the Super Bowl.
I agree.
So I mean, it goes, like you said, it goes back to talent.
And so we'd rather take a guy we didn't even know.
Based on that wonderful word, potential.
Yes.
And because he was all hyped up before the draft.
I agree.
Well, unless you have a food minute.
I'm on my way to beautiful San Francisco.
Great food.
Great food. And when I go to San Francisco, my number one dish is cioppino, which is Italian seafood stew, basically. And so I will weigh in on cioppino several times. Well, I'm in San Francisco and San Diego, and I actually think the best cioppino I've ever had is in San Diego. But again, you're on the seafood, you're on the coast.
Right.
So I'm going to go there. I'm going to go to the San Diego Donut Bar, which to me are the best donuts in the United States, bar none. Absolutely the best. And I'm going to go to Petco Park, which in my opinion also has the best ballpark food. They have three concession stands that are ranked by Food Network. And when you get your concession stand on Food Network, you're doing something good.
Right.
So they have a great barbecue stand, they have fish tacos, and they have a great tri-tip sandwich. And they have and it was the biggest craft beer selection I've ever seen. So, and I'm going to Mission for breakfast when I'm in San Diego. And might go to Rocco's in San Francisco, but I'll definitely go to the Sears Pancake House. So if you're listening and you're in those markets, those are can't miss places.
And I'll be able to chime in 2 weeks on the Food Marketing Minutes. I'll be in New Orleans.
And we will be doing the show via Skype probably, right?
Via Skype, most likely.
And yes, there's a ton of great food to discover in New Orleans. And
Right.
I'll help you discover it.
Yes. So until next week, where we're going to be previewing the AFC North, and just to forewarn people, there will be a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers football talk.
Absolutely.
We'll probably start, obviously we are going to start with the other 3 teams and end with Steeler talk. So if you're really disgusted by Steeler talk, which you shouldn't be, we're not the Patriots.
No. We haven't killed anybody, and we don't cheat.
We don't cheat. All right, so until next week, signing off.
Look forward to talking to you next week. Take care.